Cucina Rustica, the restaurant. Well, that was Carmen and Gino were the ones.
Jonathan's too ready.
Carmen moved back
Oh,
about
yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And his daughter just turned 18 when we were there.
All right, can we all stand for the pledge?
Come on.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know that I'm officially calling anything to order. This is gonna be a work session. There is not a quorum present, and we will not be making any business-related decisions or voting on anything tonight, but, if everybody is on the same page with that, I think we could just turn it over to Adam to get started with his update. Agreed.
So the biggest things going on right now is obviously the Ohio EPA wells replacement in Parkman. That's one of the larger items. We are also launching the operation and maintenance program, with also called O&M, which we talked about before. It's a state required program. It's unfunded. We started doing meetings in Chardon and Chester, but so far we've had almost zero attendance for those. So we're actually gonna go ahead and send the letters out for the first people who are affected by that. Likely then they'll have questions and we'll hold meetings then as well. The last meeting we were at, I think, was at Chester, and they actually forgot to stay to let us in that night, and so the building was locked, so we just hung out in the parking lot to make sure nobody showed up. And only Anastasia from the paper showed up, so we kind of gave her a spiel of what was going on. And I think she wrote an article that went out, or went in the paper today, or was getting submitted today.
Is that the septic program?
Correct, yes, the septic program. The first 2 years we'll be doing the NPDES systems, which are generally newer systems. And then after that, we'll roll out to all systems. There's 40,000 systems roughly in the county, 30 to 40,000. It's gonna take 10 plus years to roll this out. This is not something we're gonna roll out tomorrow and be done. I mean, 10 years is probably a generous time span. So we're looking at doing that. The other really big item that we're discussing right now is that I was approached by the county administrator and his team. They gave us our rent number to stay in this building. It was $58,000 a year. I don't have that kind of money. We did not increase the levy by that amount to pay it.
Wait, do all departments?
If you're not
pay
under
rent?
the county commissioner's hiring authority, which is myself, veterans, and BMV and title. BMV's separate because they're a for-profit agency, more or less. They have a state contract. But our number was exceedingly higher than I ever expected. I did not expect a number anywhere even near that amount. We're negotiating back and forth. We're actually gonna have a special board meeting on October 4th, which should be the Wednesday after our normal board meeting. And we're gonna meet to discuss that with County Administrator Jerry Morgan, and I believe Linda Berhenny as well will show. She's the Deputy Administrator, whatever her title is now. We've looked at condensing our space significantly to reduce that rent cost. With that reduction comes, how do we handle staffing with, do they work from home, like job site to home and back home? Do they land 1 day a week, 2 days a week? How do we handle that? So we are looking at those as different possibilities. Not something I expected, honestly. We have 1 or 2 lawsuits that are outstanding that we're trying to deal with. They're taking up significant time. So we're keeping our head above water, but there's just a lot more than would be typical. Like usually you wouldn't have Ohio EPA with the Parkman well issue. We usually would not have the lawsuits. Typically we would not have the rent issue and other items that are existing right now too. So we are trying to work to just keep our head above waters, or above the water. The staff in general though seems to be positive with most things. People are generally happy right now, which has been fantastic because obviously it's a far cry from what it might have been March of this year. The public seems to be in very good spirits. I mean, I know we talked when we were out of Chardon Township. They mostly heard positive things. We've heard positive things from almost everybody else, is that the wait times are down. The service, customer facing is a very positive thing right now. So it's been positive in general, but there's just those big items that are honestly taking up 40 to 60 hours of my time a week, minimum. And my time technically here is only 32 hours a week. So we're trying to balance all those things out. And then operation and maintenance is by far the largest. Yes, sir?
Going back to the rent thing,
Yeah.
okay? I would love to take a look and see how they arrived at this figure. It's what I do.
$4,833 a month.
Yeah, well, what's that based on? What's the square foot?
$8 a square foot is what they came up with.
Really?
And that is roughly what the square footage they had. One board member and I met with Jerry Morgan and his team, well, Linda. And my board member did want someone to professionally come in and measure the space, both where we are at now and what we would condense to get a professional measure, to make sure it's 100% correct, because obviously we're paying for the space. If we went to that condensed model, which I'm not saying we are, but if, we would not have any offices at all, so it would just be cubicles. That includes my office as well. We would just all be in a cube farm. And that would allow us to maybe sit 11 staff, best case scenario. And it would be tight. On any given day, especially with O&M right now, 15 to 20. So it's significant. And then obviously, the only concern that I think the one board member and I have is when we try to do, I don't want to say HR, but anything private, usually we go into my office because we have that sitting area where it's like my office also doubles as the conference room. We wouldn't have anything like that. So we'd have to either go outside the office or we'd have to come down and rent a conference room out, which you can't do willy-nilly. You have to do that in advance through the scheduling app. I'm not saying it's not doable. I mean, I can make anything work. I mean, if someone gives me, 2 sticks and says make a fire, I'll figure out how to make a fire. But nonetheless, it does change the model of how we operate now. And then obviously as O&M comes online fully, we'll have to hire at least 2 additional staff realistically to make sure we're not falling behind. Because the one thing not going to happen is what happened to FSOP for sale of property, where we were 5 years in arrears. That can't happen. So we will grow a little bit, not a lot, but it's paid for by that program. It's not like we're not eating up parts of the levy to be paid for by the program. But nonetheless, it's a significant change. It's a model change in terms of how we operate. Yes, sir.
Any chance for alternative sites?
That's what we're looking at now. Ironically, our board member who was voted off last time, Rich Moreno, is a realtor. So I reached out to him at a minimum, just say, hey, can you give me some ballparks of what's around, what our options are? I would ideally like to stay here for one primary reason is water resources and building department are just down the hallway. So if you're coming to us for a septic, you probably have to go to building, you're probably going to water resources, and other things. There's other things that happen as well. I also have told them, I think we've been a great partner in terms of the building. We've provided significant resources to other agencies who were in need for things that we had that we were able to loan out to them or let them use. So I think we've been a good partner agency here. But
This commissioner approved?
I don't believe they voted on it. But again, I would imagine some of that falls under the administrator's guise, which, as example myself, I don't go to the board with every little detail or choice I make, but I do email them consistently just so they're in the loop. At a minimum, Ms. Brakey, but generally the entire board.
Can you plead to the board, to the commission?
I have talked to at least one of the county commissioners, just to get their opinion on it. And obviously, if we can't come to an agreement, I would talk up during their public session and their meetings, just for the mere fact that, if my board specifically says we have to stay where we're at, square footage and everything, I can't afford, $40,000, $50,000 a year. But, if we were able to negotiate that down significantly, then maybe, but
Did you pay rent?
no. At $470. And it's there, so in the code, it's somewhat gray. Some counties provide space for health departments, some don't. Lake used to have a space, then we got lost that space, then we had a building, then we bought the building for next to nothing off the county. And then when our building burned down, we bought our own building with insurance money. It wasn't like it was taxpayer, but it was insurance money. And then other agencies have been bought buildings, they've been loaned buildings, they've been said you sit in this building. It just depends on the county, which they're very different county to county. It's significantly different.
Does this put us in danger of having to move to Lake County?
No, we made a commitment in general, and I don't know how it would work any other way, that we would have a front-facing thing here in the county. You have to for vital stats, because vital stats can't be in another county. This is not how it works. septics and wells and everything else EH does has to be here. Nursing has to be here.
Yeah, it has to be a landing spot somewhere.
So that's the bulk
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah, and I'm,
It'd be minimized slightly, but.
most of our staff is environmental health, so it's septics, wells, food inspections, that's 3/4, if not more, of the health department is just that. The reality is we're looking at all options. I mean, it was not expected. I mean, they have, I'm understanding as I work with them, there's some other options possibly. But again, I don't know, I can't talk for the board. I can't enter into a lease of that significance. I can't agree to it. The board would have to. And then they would have their say as to how they want that space to go.
Yeah, even with our nutrition program, we've operated for Geauga and Lake County for several years. We look at the clinics where people are, so even if we had 1 or 2 spaces for the health district down here, we still would keep that present, so we don't wanna.
Yes, our WIC program.
It's about access.
Yeah, the WIC program, which is Lake and Geauga WIC, has a location behind the Chardon Walmart. It's a little industrial area, but there's some buildings up front. There's a location there. They go to Middlefield, and they used to be in Huntsburg as well. So the location has to stay. I mean, I've looked at other options, like with Vital Stats, which is birth and death certificates. Do we try to talk to BMV and share, and like, you know, would they be willing to rent us a tiny little cubicle? Because when you get your license nowadays, you have to have your birth certificate. And if your birth certificate's older, like mine was the old square piece of paper, those don't count. Now you get the serialized one. So they gotta come to us anyways. So I've not approached BMV, so if they're listening, that's not what I'm saying. But, you know, it was like, you know, what are the backup plans and backup to backup plans? With our nursing team right now, most of the time we're either at DDC or we're in the UH van or bus that they've allowed us to borrow. They drive it for us, and then we are able to use it. So we're usually out of the office most of the time with those anyways. The sanitarians and clerks, they've got to land somewhere. So clerks have to be here. Sanitarians can kind of land and go and land and go. But it's obviously a stark difference than what today is, where you have your own desk, you can kind of put up your family pictures if you want, or put your own spin to it. It'd be very different moving forward. Not impossible.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
How many hours a week does a sanitarian spend in this office?
Definitely 8 to 10 almost every morning, and then it depends on what their schedule is. So if somebody cancels, they may come back, they may stay out. But I would say at minimum 2 to 3 hours a day, roughly.
If you go kind of paperless, you can do maybe another hour off of that
Yeah.
or so.
So a
We'll have
work
to
from
pull in
home
residents.
wouldn't be
No,
the
we-
end of the world for a sanitarian,
Yeah,
or for
we-
losing productivity.
We've
right?
done it in Lake, and what we did there was it's a hybrid model to say the least. So you kind of start at home, you go to your job site, and you go back home. And like 2 days a week you land in the office, so you can upload your data and everything else. And it worked well because we were growing to the point that we had double up offices or triple up even sometimes, so it made sense that do that. And plus for employee retention, if you tell them you can go from home to job site and back home at least 2 days a week, retention is like, hey, I'd rather not get up an extra hour early to drive all the way to the office to then just go, really just to sit there to then go back somewhere else.
I worked in Stark County from '99 till 2007, and their policy from the beginning was the sanitarian would come in 1 day a week, the other 4 they're in the field. And so many of them operate that way and have been for a long time.
As a public official, I'd be willing to write the commission of something, you know, if I had lined out the benefits of Geauga Public Health being in this building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, for what it would be worth.
And I think from the public's perspective, I mean, that's usually what we try to always think of is what does the public see? It only makes sense because I know how frustrating it was if building was uptown and we were on 470, you had to stop with us, God forbid something was wrong, you had to go back somewhere else, to go back to here. And the square is never easy to park on. Then you come down to Arch, if it's voting time, that's a nightmare. So all those things play into account, and we try to look at, you know, what's the least aggravating way to let the public get everything they need and not feel aggravated that I gotta walk here, I gotta walk there, I gotta do this. And there's many times, like, I mean, this morning, you know, I'm standing out in the hallway on a phone call, and somebody comes up and they're trying to find something. We show them where building's at. Usually they go, yeah, I gotta go do my septic. And actually, like, well, you're gonna go right back to where you started, and you're gonna go straight ahead instead of where I took you. And it just makes it easy for them. And they can ask questions, they can find clarification, things they didn't know, areas they didn't know. And we try to have a sanitarian in the office at all times, so if someone has a question, a sanitarian can answer it. Because obviously they have a degree to do that, and they have specialized training. So we're trying to do all of that. I'm not saying anything's impossible. I mean, I'll make anything work. If you give it to me, I'll make it work.
What's the
It's-
timing on
Theoretically, they'd like rent to start January 1st. There's been some discussion as it could move back possibly a little bit. But, I mean, from my perspective, we have our food licensing fees that have to go out, which is a significant time suck between now and December. We have the Parkland wells we're trying to finish up, finalize the last 6 or 7 of those. We have our audit that is ongoing and a couple other things. Though that time is gonna blow by. I mean, it's gonna be December before we blink. And yeah, if we don't have plans in place and then the other thing is I gotta prep the staff. I don't wanna just drop it on them and say, hey, by the way, because they've already seen me walking around going, if there's a wall here and we're only over here, and then they go, what do you mean a wall? So I've prepped them a little bit, but obviously it's
So
not.
there's gotta be something else going on here. What's the motivation behind this? Are they in need of space?
They need a space or money.
We actually did offer up space, so when this came up, if you want, I can actually take you all through our space before we leave tonight. I don't mind doing that. We have this really weird lunchroom that we don't actually use that goes to the bathrooms, so no one wants to sit there while someone's having a bad bathroom day and watching them back and forth. We offered that up to.
Great design. Well, we got space for you, let me tell you.
We offered that up to ADP, the technology team, because they needed more space. And I said, if it cuts our space down, we don't really use it. We just need a bathroom location. That's fine. We gave up one of our storage rooms as well in efforts to that. I'm fine with that. I mean, we've tried to work with them if they need it. But it does make it difficult because we do epidemiology, which is actually communicable disease, maybe talking about very sensitive information. We have that information on desks, which usually lock doors. We can't do that anymore. The other thing we ran into recently, which was a frustration, by recently I mean probably maybe beginning of this year maybe, the door going into the health department, if you held down the button for 10 seconds, it lets you in. To everything. We had a lady who did that, and she said, on the door, it tells me, hold it down and you can get in. And I said, well, yeah, it's a fire code issue, but my problem is anyone can enter our space. Yeah. So we've had that problem, which we've talked to the commissioners about. We've semi-fixed that. But I mean, there's just frustrations. I mean, the building is what the building is. I'm not trying to critique that. But there's other considerations that have gone in as to what makes a better space. How do you fix that space?
Yeah, if you're paying for the space, it needs to be functional and convenient. You're already on the 3rd floor, which makes it somewhat a disadvantage for elderly. But I mean, our plumbing program we put to the county, and Starr County plumbing program went in, or building went in with the plumbing program at Starr County. So there's a bunch of ways you can kind of share staff, but I think the minimum space is probably that cubicle, the front end, at least one or office, and then potential meeting room that you have someone dedicated. Otherwise, it'd be challenging to serve the community without a bit of a push.
If this building's too small, it was poor planning on somebody's part.
Well, my understanding is Commissioner Dvorak, I forget what meeting I was at, but I was actually at one. And I know he always says he's a masonry guy at heart. He's a bricklayer. He says it every time I hear him talk. But I think he proposed the 4th floor at that time. He said you really should at least put the substructure in place so that if you ever need it, it's there. And my understanding is they didn't do that. We also found out recently, which is a bigger problem, the HVAC is not tied into the backup generator. So when we lost power those 2 days, we had no HVAC. Now, thank God for when they screwed up our vaccine room, how it works, they had to run a separate air unit to our vaccine room after the fact. Somehow that got tied into the backup generator, which I did not think was. It actually is. So that was ironically safe.
Mistake, huh?
A good mistake.
Some of the vaccines are very pricey.
Yeah, we actually lost one freezer that we believe was due to a power outage. That was, I think, a $5,000 or $6,000 freezer we lost. So when that happened, my question to them was, if we lose power in January and it freezes, what happens to the building? I mean, I can't keep staff here when it's 40 degrees in the building. I can't keep them here if it's 90 degrees in the building. We still follow OSHA to some degree, which is like 68 to 74 degrees to be operating space. So we actually kept the staff in here that day because it was like up and down kind of air. But I mean, I asked to the commissioners, I said, if that happens again, I'm sending them home. I'm not having them here when it's 80 degrees in the building or if it's 50 degrees in the building. And my other concern is what happens to everything in the building if there is even somewhat of a temp control needed for it and it's not temp controlled. So my understanding is BOE, Board of Elections, ran into the same issue. Their paper, I believe, has to be temp controlled at all times. So now they're in the same situation as to it has to be on backup generator. And my understanding is the price to do that after the fact is significant.
I don't really guess potassium iodide or SEMA, but.
So this is an end around scramble because they built a building that was too small
among other things.
And
I don't want to, I mean.
apparently having problems paying for it as well.
I don't want to speak for them on that. I mean, I'm just speaking to our specific issues, so I don't want to, you know, but we've offered, I mean, I'll work with anybody. I mean, if you tell me what you want to do, I'm willing to work as long as we can all get along. I mean, in terms of like it working, you know, we're helping out water resources, we're helping out aging with some things.
Yeah, we would appreciate the support, I think, that if we get into that pinch, and as we're negotiating with them, and I think common sense will rise to the top, but a letter would not hurt them. We want a presence in this county, and this is
So-
probably the appropriate place for most of the
So
services.
back in the spring, when everything was going crazy and the place was blowing up because of Lake County
Mhm.
connection, that whole explanation was because costs were rising.
Mhm.
Did they not chime in at the time and say, this is also gonna be a significant?
So when we first went to move in here, I asked what the rent number would be, and this is back, so we moved in here last July 4th weekend. So 6 months at least before that, I was asking, what's the rent, how much is it? 'Cause the rent was, I mean, it wasn't like it was, I didn't expect you to live here for free. But I said, like, what's the rent number, how much are we gonna pay? Because I've gotta build a budget out for that, and I've gotta really think about it. And that was before everything, the prices skyrocketed too. I mean, you know, we were getting by, but it was tight. Now it's really tight because everything we do is 10% higher than what it was, it feels like. So when that happened, it was, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. Okay. Well, then it was, don't worry about it, we don't know. Well, now when you come out with 58,000 as you're starting off, I'm sitting there going, that's not a don't worry about issue. Like, to me, don't worry is maybe $10,000. Don't worry, you're okay.
Yeah, I mean, the money has something to it for us. When we did this, people lost their jobs. Luckily, we hired the director of nursing back just recently in Lake County for the project, but for us, that money was, somebody lost their job because of that, and now to spend it again, somebody else loses their job over that, you know, so if we can do anything we can do creatively, collaboratively, guys, it's what we have to do to fight for that.
Just think back to the temperature and the atmosphere at that time, people losing jobs because of increased costs, and, you know, why aren't we projecting?
Counterproductive to where,
Yeah.
you know, it's the mission, which is provide public health services.
And, I mean, I know I take heat for it sometimes, but we do everything as cost efficiently as possible. I know some people would say just, you know, increase this or do that, but we try to do that. And I know one theory that was already thrown out was just charge subdivisions, which would be all of you. I said, that's not as easy said than done, because I know some of you are struggling to make your own bills match. So it's not like I can just walk over and say, hey, I need 60,000, that's, you know, $5,000 from each one of you. And my other concern is that 3% more every year? Or is it 5% more every year? Or is it 10%? Or is it flat? I don't know.
At least until we can get the state turned around. I mean, BCMH, or Children with Medical Handicaps, as it's called now, CMH, has been paying $40 per hour reimbursement for a nurse since I was in public health in '99. Probably paid that since 1985. Nurses are making way more than $40 an hour with fringes, and so the state has not even mentioned, you know, changing that rate, you know, because we'd have to see less people, and the state isn't gonna do that. But in the meantime, it's just hitting us in the pockets across the state, so until we, at least even if we could push it a couple of years until we could get, you know, some of the additional grant dollars, some other O&M programs running up that are self-sustaining, that would even be a benefit, but, you know, we don't have the time of it, it's already
And I think if we'd known about
a
this
month behind already.
4 or 5 months ago, we probably would have said we had to increase the levy. We said, hey,
Right.
it's 0.2, we gotta go to 0.25. I mean, I don't know the exact dollar conversion of that, but we just said it has to go up X to cover Y, and give us a 5-year levy, you'd say, okay, I need X plus 3% times 5 equals whatever Y is, and that's what we're gonna do. So that was difficult.
Adam, the way I see it is, and I don't think that the administrator, Mr. Morgan, and nor the commissioners are taking into account certain things with Geauga Public Health, and that is that if you look at that pie chart that the auditor has on his website, I don't know if you saw that,
I do,
okay,
yeah.
and the amount of tax money is going to different agencies, and it's this much, it's this much, it's this much. It's, well, Geauga Public Health is like a sliver.
It's
You're
a
like,
sliver,
oh, what's that
sliver.
sliver there? Okay, and then secondly, take into account that Geauga Public Health is not assessing townships or municipalities for money. If it, and they're already running thin, all right, and they're not taking that into account too, either. The county doing this to Geauga Public Health at that high rate is potential steps closer to Geauga Public Health assessing townships. putting a bigger levy that's gonna cost our taxpayers more. That, we are running, and among other things, they're not taking those things into account. That it's a ripple effect and will affect, taxpayers and townships.
Yeah, I mean, we were very.
That make
close to
sense?
this. Yeah, federal dollars, state dollars, and then last use is local dollars, like anything else.
Right, so it's kind of upsetting to me that you know, I just don't think that it's a balanced, the solution they came up with is a balanced, thought, a balanced approach, you know?
Well, and I also explained to them, so government entities, if you say the rent in your space is $8, we're gonna pay probably 4 or less. You just have a government entity, I got taxpayers to be here, but we're reliable. You're gonna get paid every time. It's never gonna vary. So it's your guaranteed tenant who pays their bills, and we're not gonna screw the space
No,
that
it
way.
wouldn't be quite 50% reduction, but yeah, you always get a discounted rate for
Right.
length of term and obviously your credit profile. A government agency is always considered, AAA. So they usually have better leases, but those leases are always most sought after because they're considered guaranteed.
Right. And
What
we,
I'd like to know is what they compared it to, how they came up with the $8.
Yeah, the CAM, all those kind of things we need to look at.
And that's what, so we are a landlord in Lake County, so our building, we are a landlord for other agencies, private and public. And, we do due diligence, every time we renew a contract, I've gotta go out for at least a couple months and look at comparables in the area.
Yeah.
And what did CAM go up by, and, what did utilities go up by, and, what renovations need done to the building, what does the tenant want renovated? So, there's all those things that go in, and again, I'm not placing blame on anybody, I mean, it's just, the reality is. We're just trying to figure out what to do, and I know, like, I just talked with Ron, we're trying to figure out some things with the state that they need updated on, and I just have to tell them, right now, it's not disrespect, I just don't have the time. It's 80 hours a week, and I'm barely keeping my head above water, because of all these things that were never intended to be on the plate that are on the plate right now. And it would've been, whether this happened today or last year, or 2 years ago, we'd be in the same spot, because we don't have 2 extra people just sitting around waiting for jobs to do. We have enough people to do the jobs we have. So when you throw on an extra 40 hours a week of this and that, it just gets absorbed, usually by management, because that's just how it flows. Management takes it on and we go, okay, we're not gonna get paid, but at least it gets done. And that's like Mr. Lark, he's doing the O&M meetings, myself, him, and Miss Pinkley. I mean, that's usually 6 to 8 o'clock at night we do those, and so I think we've done 2 or 3 of them already, and then we have 2 or 3 more coming up. That's 3-4 hours of drive time that we'll never get back, but the fact is we have to talk to the public and make sure they're informed about what's going on. I'm not complaining about it, but that's who absorbs all that stuff. And we're just getting to a point now, we just can't keep absorbing on top of all these other things.
Yeah, there's peaks and valleys. We hope for those valleys, but, 3-6 months go by and you still have those peaks, lawsuits. We can do what we can do, but it's challenging because that's just the new norm.
Have you considered that JFS building?
That was actually, I can't even remember who it was, but somebody actually mentioned the JFS is like right across that way, sorry,
Yeah.
that way. That was brought up, I don't know what UH or whoever's doing with it, I mean,
Oh, the county doesn't own that?
I think they do, but somebody was telling me UH was doing something over there, they were prepping for it.
Oh.
I don't know the true story of it, because it was just kind of something thrown out there, and I said, I hadn't even thought about that, honestly. I remember when they moved out, but I didn't remember whatever happened to it.
Yeah, I think the next part is we tend to speak with the board has a discussion with the county, we get to the commissioners, we see what happens, go from there if there's options or not, but.
And we're obviously very careful, like, I'm sure all of you are as well, when I send email to the board, they can't respond to me, or together, I mean, they can respond to me, but they can't respond together. So it's not like I can have discussions about this,
Yeah.
and it just happened 3 weeks ago. We had a brief conversation at the last Board of Health meeting at the end of August, and then we have our next meeting this September 27th, and then I have a meeting October 4th, it'll be a special meeting that's going out once I approve the agenda, which is just talking about the building space. And we gotta figure that out. So we haven't had a ton of time to talk about it, but we will be talking about it, obviously, and seeing where we wanna go. And the board has asked, at least one of the members was like, other locations, other rent prices.
Yeah.
What does it do if we do that? What if you cut the space down? And our space, I said, I'll walk everybody through the space. If we cut it down, there's only 1 or 2 places you can put a wall that doesn't completely gut the entire place and makes it useless for anybody else. Because there's a lot of hallways in this place. I mean, I was told that it was actually designed after a school, and they didn't really catch how it was designed. That's why you have trophy cases and stuff all over the place.
They actually told you it was designed after a school.
That's what I heard, like, yeah.
It
That's
Someone-
not, something that you don't say out
Trophy
loud.
cases are important in a county building.
Yeah,
And
Who
where do
was
you
the
find out?
project manager?
I don't know. The reason I asked because there's these trophy cases out here, and I was like, why do we have trophy cases? And they go, it was actually like a model after school. I was like, oh, okay.
Plus you have fleet vehicles to park.
So we've
Yeah.
got another engineering blunder like we do at the Berkshire Heights sewer plant.
Hey, it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know. You do what you do, and you may move on. I mean, I'm not blaming, but it's just there's hallway inefficiencies. There's different other inefficiencies that if I'm gonna pay primo space for a space, I mean, I want the space to be what we want, not what somebody made it. So.
I would encourage my colleagues to go ahead and write a letter, you know, have it well crafted, and if you feel the same way I do.
And I have no problem paying, I mean, I can't speak for the board, so take this as what it's worth. I have no expectations that we wouldn't pay for utilities and we wouldn't pay for cleaning. I have no expectations that we wouldn't pay for something. I mean, if they threw out that they would do it for free, that's fine, I'll take that, I'll take it. But the reality is we are using the utilities and we are using the cleaning when they come in and vacuum or whatever. So I mean, I don't expect a free location.
I should put a separate electric meter on for you guys.
Well, I'm curious
You
how
could
they're
pay
gonna,
the-
I'm guessing they divided it by square foot is what I'm guessing, but I don't know. I'm sure somebody here has a huge power draw and somebody here doesn't have that big, so you're eating their portion of a huge power draw. So,
Well, your freezers have to be drawing.
yeah, I mean, ours, some of.
Sorry.
Those are the Downey's refrigerators? No, those are Parkman's. So we are looking at that, we're looking at other options. If for some reason we left, you know, I've looked at, you know, the DDC, the Amish clinic, they literally have a home refrigerator as a refrigerator. You know, we have some stuff out there where they have better refrigerators at that point, better freezers. You know, I'm not saying they want that, but we've looked at, you know, how can we help community partners while still having our footprint where we need it. Because honestly, the Amish clinics are going fantastic. The harness shop that had us out there is like a fan favorite with the Amish. The families love it there. They're already at the tack shop. The UH bus has made that hugely available, which has been fantastic from UH having that outreach with us. And then a couple other options we have, like being at the DDC, has been fantastic. So we've tried to go where they want us. If they don't want us there, we don't go there. But if they want us there, we're there. So those have gone fantastic so far. They've actually the Amish clinics have mostly been packed. So we only do 40 to 50 people, and they're almost all packed. Actually, they're trying to schedule months in advance now to be out there. So that's been fantastic. The Amish has really come out. The gentlemen there and the ladies have just been fantastic. So that.
The grant opportunity to potentially get a mobile unit paid for by the
Yeah.
state we're looking into.
I did reach out to this. Yeah, I did reach out to the state. I missed an email. We were handling some other things, obviously more important things at the time. But in Lake County, we bought a mobile vaccine bus that we can travel like to Madison or somewhere that's more on the fringe of the county. Well, the Amish obviously don't. I don't want them to have to take a taxi to us for $50 or $60 if we can go to them and save them $50 or $60. The hard part is we got to borrow UH's mobile unit, which they've been gracious with. But in the future, I don't know how that pans out. So there may be a grant opportunity to apply for and have paid for a mobile vaccination unit, like a bus, a small bus.
So primarily, the COVID dollars were like kind of COVID direct contact tracing, vaccine promotion. Now they're got a bit of a pinch, and they're opening up what we can buy for equipment. Now we're finally getting to like kind of capital improvement or
They have plenty
commitment
of money
things.
they have to get rid of.
Trying to do that. We
Our
also
money.
did ask for an extension on the public health accreditation. Annual report of year 2 was due, it was like September 1st, I think, something like that. I'm not sure if it was even paid, the premium this year. We got an extension until December. We do have to disclose all the lawsuits, all the building changes, any of that is triggers a contact, get that delayed. We also spoke about the irrelevance of some of the accreditation mandates. If they have one, it's in the contract for us to do some of it. To be fully accredited, you gotta be a full-time accreditation coordinator, so that's $80 out of the gate. Interesting conversation, now that we feel in 2020, accreditation has been reinterpreted that if you can work with partners that deliver that, you can count that as a credit. You could not do that at the time this agency went there, nor did we in Lake County. So we're not very happy about that, but I think that's an option to look at how we work with the state to look at a demonstration project or hang in there and keep Geauga accredited twofold. One, working down the cost of it by being able to use outside partnerships to account for what we need to do in public health, including Lake County or any of the surrounding partners. And then 2 is getting the community health assessments out of the way. So we are working with the data a doctor of analysis from Public Health for Us, who've been with like our university hospitals. We're looking at getting our first data set from the hospital to work together. If that's the case, we'd save about $80,000 every 3 years just on a health assessment for each agency that could work with the hospitals, like County Geauga, Beulah. So we'll approach the board to continue with that as long as we can. The money's already paid for the most part for the 5-year cycle, in the hopes that we can stay accredited either under Lake County's partnership umbrella or individually, whatever is, you know, feasible to the board, and financially justifiable. I don't know if anything else from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's the majority. So I mean, I know it's a lot. I mean, I spoke more than 5 minutes. That's for sure.
That's why I had to break it up.
Mike's like, come on, man, I need 5 freaking minutes.
No, I didn't even notice, to be honest with you, Adam.
Yeah.
I don't know, this is a really perplexing situation with everything that's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I can see, the county built this building obviously with the intention of the health department being in here. Regardless, and everybody knows my opinion on what happened in March, but regardless of that, it just, I mean, all that it is it's a transfer payment. You're going in from one government agency to another. So you're gonna help the books out of the commissioners, probably the, you know, whatever buildings and maintenance, whatever fund that they're gonna be aiding. But it's gonna be a detriment to an agency that the community depends on, that does not have, you know, unlimited or varied funding sources, and it's I don't know, it seems like a bit of an accounting trick to me, as well as
Money grab.
yeah, it's a money grab.
And it's the biggest concern I have. So I mean, obviously I'm a money guy at heart. I'm trying to look long term. The reality is we have we're the House Bill 110 program that you guys are probably all aware, it's all priced in the paper 100 times. We didn't do those services for 10 years. We're paying that money back. It's about $1 million, like $979,000. We're drawing down the coffers significantly quicker than we're replenishing them. Now we can make things do, but you know, at the time the House Bill 110 was not known the extent that it was going to be. The rent was unknown at the time, and then for sale of property, we knew we were ending that, but that revenue, I mean, it's evaporated like nearly 100%. So, and that was what funded the majority of the health department. That was the revenue generator. Now O&M will replace some of that, but O&M takes time. It's like pedaling a bike uphill. You got to get that momentum going before the bike is really moving very hard, or very fast. So we're working on all those things, but it just adds up.
Yeah, in Lake County, I think we had a 7-year implementation. We had planned on 5, it ended up 7, COVID and Ebola and all that kind of things. But there may be a point where the money starts coming down depending on how the state reimburses grants that are not being able to be utilized to the staffing set there without putting more staffing. That costs more than the grant itself. Is that we will have to accelerate that O&M program just to keep the money flow, so we don't end up insolvent. So we just don't know what those numbers are until we see what else is coming down the pike repeatedly, you know, in these lawsuits and everything else.
And obviously we've been trying to take it a little bit slow just because we want the public to know what's happening before it happens. I mean, it was the reason that I took my staff into a presentation to the county commissioners before we did it. We went to Chardon Township before we did it, went to Chestnut Township before we did it. That way they said, okay, as trustees or commissioners, we know what's going on, so the public has a problem. I can at least speak to some level as to what it is, besides saying, I don't know, they just decided to charge you for your, you know, your poop tank, because that's how it comes across half the time I hear about it. So,
Safety in numbers.
So we tend to do that. I mean, it's went very well. We had one lady who was pretty funny that I think it was Chester, and she was an older bird, and she had her say in the end, she was like, all right, she was, y'all aren't so bad. And I said, all right, well, you know, I'll take it. So
that's time consuming too, just the PR side of it, just sitting down with somebody and respecting their opinion and walking them through it. You know, we do that once, it's 20 minutes, the next time we do it, it can be 2 hours with somebody. That's tough, but it's going well.
I have 2 questions. One of them is the levy that's coming up. Could you tell us what kind of levy it is and how much it is and why?
yeah, I can speak factually to that. So it's a 0.2 mil levy. It's a renewal. So we're just looking for the exact same thing we've had before. It more or less funds the health department that doesn't currently have funding. So you're talking about primarily your communicable diseases. We have to fund that internally because it's an unfunded mandate. Rabies, amongst other things that we have, which you know, the most common thing we hear around this county is a bat was in my house while I was sleeping, And bats, when they bite, generally are like hypodermic needles. I'm just giving an example. Yeah, you don't really know if you got bit or not.
No, I know, I do grab.
Did you?
I flung it across the room.
And sometimes
I had to go through the whole series, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, we get a lot, not a lot, but we get a number of those.
Yeah.
Usually bats in the house. We just
Yeah.
had one yesterday. Raccoons on occasion that might have rabies.
Nuisance complaints.
Nuisance complaints are unfunded. Your positions like mine, Mr. Graham's, things like that are
Medical
unfunded.
director.
Medical director, those are things that just, there's no funding for because
Director
EH doesn't
of
pay for them.
nursing.
Director of nursing
Most
staff
of
in
the
general.
administration has kind of been boxed out of grants.
Yeah.
So the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
The handsome ones, that's what I heard. No, I tried some like laughter this, it's a long meeting, but.
Yeah, so we're like anti-authorities, we like to get the administration out of the way anyway, see if they were part of it, but, you know, we'll see how
But
tonight,
it's,
tomorrow.
it's the smallest levy in the county is my understanding as well.
Yeah.
There's not a levy smaller than that one in the
Yeah.
county. So that's kind of where it sits at.
Are all public health organizations just sort of held together with spit and paper? I mean,
Yeah.
Pretty
I would
close.
say
Little bit
there's-
gum. There's gum once in a while.
I mean-
Yeah.
You know,
There's
double
100
bubble.
and-
why is there not some county funding?
So there can be, it would be that your local, your tax assessment, if we were back to
Yeah.
that when it used to be. The, Ohio is what, we're 48th in the nation for funding,
Federal-
worst funding for
CDC
federal.
funding, HRSA funding, the health,
Yeah.
human resources.
We're one of the worst for funding, so it's,
Pretty safe.
Local government funds have been just rigged, so if you guys have this money, if you wanted to go that route. Food services caps, we lose about 20%, you can only get so much admin back. O&M is kind of a break-even program, CMH is falling behind. You have the unfunded mandate components, all the administration, and so again, yeah, if you're 10,000 employees or 2 employees, you have a health commissioner, director, and an EH director, and it just, this does not make any sense, you know?
So do the county commissioners know how you operate?
Uh,
Do they know how this department operates?
to some degree, I would say yes. I'm not gonna say 100%,
Mystical
but to
percent.
some degree, yes. I mean, they've heard the spiel.
I
And-
invited them to this meeting and encouraged them one of them to attend, but,
And that brings me to my second question is, I noticed there's no board member here today, so one of 3 reasons that could happen. One, they didn't know about the meeting. 2, they knew about it, but coincidentally, not one of them could make it. Or 3, they don't really care too much about this relationship. So which is it?
I mean, they knew about it. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of things going on. I think they also just trust Ron and I to handle it. I mean, I don't want
Part of the reason for these extra meetings is for not just the administrator, but for the board also, that relationship also, to the HDAC.
And maybe we just try to preface it more with them next time, to try to at least get 2 every time.
Take a full ask,
Yeah, I can make sure we get 2, or at least try
I
to get 2 every
personally,
time.
I don't know if the president would agree with me or not, of the HDAC or my fellow council, I would ask for a full ask politely, because I'm a little disappointed that there's no board member here. I don't know if any of you are. You
Well,
are?
yeah, it speaks volumes to me
Yeah, it's
What do you
not, it's
mean by
not good
full?
optics.
of
A
not,
full
yeah,
ask.
it is.
They
Another
just-
township
they just-
representative.
Right.
Just making sure they know and asking
Well,
them, knowing that the
ask-
HDAC is asking
Well, I
them to
didn't
join
know-
us.
asking the full
Make-
board to
making
show
sure-
up.
no, no.
Because I specifically said
No.
we didn't want the full.
No,
board.
that's not what we're saying.
Why don't you ask for attendance next time, who can't be here, and at least then we know in advance.
Well, I did ask that
And then they're
kind of beginning of
accountable.
this one, because, I mean, if nothing else, I don't want to buy $50 in pizza if we only need $10 in pizza.
That's the
Or-
real reason.
Yeah, and then just a penny pincher is what it really comes down to.
Well, please tell them that it's because we want to know that we're friendly.
Mhm.
You know, it's
We wanna
not
be
to
in
gotcha,
partnership.
it's just for the whole purpose of just being on the same page.
Well, it's
From
also
my-
unearth maybe some ideas that would help
Yeah.
remedy some
Oh,
of the issues
absolutely.
that you're dealing with, and you're sort of isolated on your own trying to
And
figure it out.
yeah, and encouraging them even,
And
giving them encouragement.
And I will say, I mean, just from my standpoint, I mean, the Board of Health you have right now, not that it was, I'm not gonna speak to the previous ones, but you have, in general, a very engaged Board of Health. I know right now they're not here. There were 2 of them at the last meeting.
Yeah.
In general, they are very engaged. I mean, they've been exceptional with all the things going on right now to understand that even my time, where I'm usually very attentive, and I'm like, my rule of like calling you back in 50 minutes might be a day, might be 2 days, because at this point, it's just struggling to get by. And they've been helping with that. You know, Lynn Roman, who has moved actual like entire buildings, 100,000 square foot buildings. She's helping us with the rent and things. We have Dr. Hendrickson, who's been putting a lot of insight in. Dr. Root from the medical side, amongst many, he has a wealth of knowledge. Ashley Jones, even though she just recently had her child. And then Carolyn Brakey has been great with the legal side of things. So they're generally there. We will try to get them here next time. But I will say in general, they're on top of a lot of things. I will give them that. You know, it's not like I call them and they go, "That's you guys can handle that." They're very much like, "What can we do to help you? How can we alleviate some stress off of you? How can we help?" There's a lot of things I can't give them though.
Their absence here does not negate the fact that I do believe that they're a good board, and they're
Okay.
doing a lot. It doesn't negate that at all. It just speaks towards the purpose for these meetings.
Yeah,
That's
I understand
that
that.
relationship.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't make them bad board members.
I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
And
maybe
it
my,
could
I want
be
everybody
one
to know
person,
that.
Just a
Yeah.
representation.
And I think we'll get 1 or 2 next time. I think this,
and some of it, I mean, for me, I look at the board, for comparison to the whole state, it's been public health a while, we have 14 members, some other have 5 or 7, but you have a pharmacist, 2 doctors, health IT person, and a pharmacist, and an attorney. That's a highly professional board, nothing wrong with it, their time may be viewed differently.
Well, they got good hearts
So, you
too.
know,
I mean,
Yeah,
they-
yeah.
I like the
It's
board,
not
and
retirement.
their absence here in no means,
Yeah,
doesn't reflect that at
Usually have
all.
like a retired landscaper and, plumber, and so it's a more diverse board or whatever, that may be retired and it would come to all the meetings,
And obviously, we do have one board member who's running for office. So if she gains that office, we may have to have a discussion if you guys would have to vote someone else in at an unusual time, I would imagine.
Does the bylaw
But she's
speak
got
to that?
kids, she's got young kids too, I mean,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, exactly,
So those are all things, obviously we keep in the back of our heads as to, how does this flow, how does that flow? And honestly, we're trying to have backup plans at this point, not just the rent location, but operation maintenance, how these lawsuits go.
Grant management,
Yeah.
succession planning,
And-
all that stuff, putting in place policies, procedures that people can pick up and.
I mean, as an example of how much stuff is going on, I was out, I had an event on Friday of last week I had to go to, that was a personal thing, and I think I had 24 missed calls, like 16 voicemails, we had over 400 emails in that single day. And then Dan Lark, the EH director, will have at least that, if not more. And those are things that you come back to, it takes you 2 weeks to unbury from being gone from a single day. We have, I thank God Dan was in the office, because one of the parking well things, I had to put him off to Dan and say, hey, I literally can't talk where I'm at, I have no ability to, you'd never hear me, Dan can handle it. And so we're doing that Saturdays and Sundays. It's just things that were unexpected, to say the very least. It's not a woe is me thing, it's just, we're trying to do everything we can. The board has been super awesome with it. Jonathan and Chris have been super awesome to help me with different things. Mike was hospitable at least to have us out to his township for a discussion. But we're doing everything we can. The goal is still, as always, is to serve the public. As long as they're relatively happy, we know we're doing our job right. As long as we can keep them up to date. We're meeting with the police chiefs, I think, tomorrow. Ron and I will actually be in Columbus for an event for health commissioners. But we meet with the police chiefs tomorrow. Some of our staff are. We have a couple other events that we're dealing with EMA and Perry Nuclear Power Plant that we're involved in because of the north part of the county. So a lot of things are getting done. I mean, the team here is just phenomenal. I mean, they're just knocking things out of the park daily. It's just, there's a lot. And then you throw these other things on, and honestly, it stresses them out too. They're going, well, what if this, and what if that, and what if this doesn't go our way?
If it pleases the group too, I can sit on a couple of the documents that show the trending over time. So they're probably in '99 when I started public health, there was 253 health districts in the state of Ohio. We're down to 113. It started probably about 15 years ago. Funding's been down 33%. Staffing was down 33%. Same as the townships. I think your government funds are been cut in half
LGS.
twice or whatever. Some of that, if not more. So this has been a long time coming. COVID, good or bad, received some additional funds for the first time since 9/11, which was about 20 years going on plus. So we're recovering, but it's just public health is so slow, so behind, especially in Ohio. It's just nationally the trending's down.
It's important, that, really appreciate you sharing challenges, because we want to hear the challenges from the administrator and from the board, the challenges they're going through, as well as what you just said, the things that you guys are doing, those great things that you're doing, despite of whatever. That's important too. We love getting that information out to our constituents.
And I think,
You know, and the challenge is okay to share too. you
and
know,
and usually
so-
my fear is like, you know, when, I'm not speaking just for guys here, but usually when a guy complains, it's more of an annoyance to other guys, because like, buckle up, pull your pants up and get going. But, I mean, there's things like that I was talking with the board members, and she's like, most of us don't see the stuff you guys are doing every day. We don't see that you're getting, you know, 24 phone calls in 5 hours, and that you're trying to do your job plus that, you know, plus somebody calls you out to, you know, we actually went to Parkman for an issue, you know, so you gotta drive down to
Includes
Parkman.
everything up.
I know, it's always a
Yeah.
choice. That's why she sits next to me.
Ashley.
She's been kicking me the whole time. So, you know, but you do that and you lose an hour, and then you lose 2 hours, and you lose 4 hours, and you lose 6. And, you know, it happens. I mean, it's just part of life, but it's one of those things that, you know, it is. It's bubble gum, toothpaste, and some Scotch tape holding things together some days, and you just hope you get through to Friday and you start again on Monday.
Yeah, we
Well, I'm
put some-
really concerned about your timeline here. You're not even having a meeting about this until the 1st of October. That's 2 months to move or
Well, I had,
start paying
so,
rent.
on the
That's a
October,
lot of time in our lives.
on the October 4th meeting, the goal was to have Jerry Morgan and Linda Berhenny there, so the administrator, the deputy administrator. That was the first time we could get them there. That was a reasonable time. I mean, obviously I couldn't turn around in 1 week. 2 weeks is our board meeting, and it needs to be the board wanted a special one, so there was nothing else monopolizing the time. So that will be that one. And again, I don't want to say I'm speaking bad about Linda or Jerry. I'm sure they're doing what they view they need to do. I'm just looking at it from our viewpoint, which is different than theirs, and saying 60,000 is a staff member to me. 40,000 is a staff member to
Yeah,
me.
we all have our
Right,
obligations.
did we cut our staff so we can pay more rent?
I mean, with how it looks right now, yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, if anything, like I've told the board, I mean, I need more than anything a lead clerical type of a person that I can give a bunch of stuff to, and pretty much give my phone to on some days and say, as these calls come in, triage them, give me the important ones, take the other ones and give them to whoever else is available, and work through them.
I
So
would
that-
never get through to you anymore if you did that with somebody.
I know. Well, you're by the block, and so is Jonathan. Mike's on it won't even ring for me. Just in case
I
he
don't
watches.
even, I don't even get.
This guy's been
I
disconnected.
don't even go to voicemail.
So,
So
I
we
mean,
do have a retirement of a higher-end salary that'll be kind of repurposed, and those monies will come available to kind of spread out the staff, get new people in. And then I'd also offer, if you guys would want a newsletter from the health district, I don't know that you guys do that, but many health districts would do like a community newsletter or a trustee kind of newsletter or general
It costs you
population.
more money.
More
Yeah,
communication.
it may be digital, but we're trying to get out. If there's
Well,
certain
that's why
things
we
you
like
wanna
these.
have updates on in writing, you
I have
know.
a question.
Yes, sir.
You had talked about assessments, you know, and I've been a trustee 22 years, okay? And Newberry Township during that timeframe has never been assessed anything. You know, I'm talking back with WISDAC and, you know, that whole past health district. How is that determined? Is it just split up 16 ways, or is it based on their budget?
So
Or how
I think
does
it's
that work?
self-defined. You have to get everybody to agree,
Yeah.
which is our
So-
contract in 80. We have a separate document.
I mean, that's worst case scenario, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
he said it, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but you need to look at it.
No, no, I'm,
Option, you know,
but,
potentially.
you know, I can also see you have to have a plan B too.
Well, yeah, and that's.
And,
Yeah, let the state take
I mean,
over.
yeah.
I hate to say
And
it,
C and D.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we have all the time to just keep looking at things, but I mean, I know like when I talked to one board member, I said, you know, the next probably 2 or 3 weeks of my time is just gonna be planning and planning and planning and planning as to, you know, what if we have to? What if we can't? What if it doesn't work? What if it goes to this? What if we have to move out? What if we don't move out? What if we condense? What if we don't condense? I mean, you know, my board is very specific. They want like options A through Z, and they want to look at every one of them, and they want to see every one of them. And so that's, I mean, you look at even condensing the spacing, the square footage, and how would the staff go. That one plan alone is probably 8 to 10 hours of thinking about it and saying, what would you do with 20 staff if you only could get 6 in the office, 7 in the office? What would you do if there's no office and something catastrophic happens, you need an office to talk in?
Yeah, we
Do we go find an office? Do we, I mean,
Thing like the Ohio Performance Database, everybody puts their information in, somewhat skewed at times, right, a little skeptical, but they do have their levy amounts, their carryover amounts, their assessment amounts, and so tomorrow we can spend some time at the conference and kind of cherry pick some like communities that are similar to population or kind of operational
I'd be
scale,
interested
and
in
then
the
kind of do
others,
comparing.
whether
Yeah.
other trustees in Ohio are getting,
Yeah.
townships are getting assessed.
I could pull some of that together and.
You know, I think
visit
about all
some
the other
program
assessments relative to this.
Mhm.
Yeah, 'cause Adam doesn't have time operationally.
And we have,
for me
you
to
know,
do some of the planning.
we have more use and more day-to-day interaction with this than
Yeah.
some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only trying to give you guys a better picture of what there is. I mean, some of the stuff's outdated and, you know, it's relevant in philosophy or concept and you know, actuating and making it operational, it's maybe not so good. But we can certainly put that together and, you know, at the next meeting have something much more substantial and tangible to talk about, you know, if you guys wanna do that.
And everything we, at least for me, because I still do stuff in the private sector, everything is ROI. I mean, for me, it's like, if you're gonna invest in me,
Yeah.
you get a return
Right.
equal or greater than the investment you put in me.
Right.
If it's less than, then I need to think about something else. If it's more than, it sounds like it's probably a pretty good idea. Is the investment what you wanted the investment to be for the return base that you have?
Yeah.
So those are all those things that we look at, and all gates are always open. It's just which one makes the most sense at the time. And honestly, you always have somebody somewhere where someone's at the short end of the stick. You know, if you guys all decide we want to do an assessment, not saying we are, but if we did an assessment and somehow Chardon gets taxed with a larger chunk than everybody else because they're a city and their population maybe is bigger or something is different,
You guys have multiple
they're not
formulas.
they're not going to be happy. And if somehow Parkman gets taxed something because they're somewhere else, they're not going to be happy. And that's where it's very hard to figure out how would you do it when it's an after the fact thing where everyone's going, I haven't paid this in 20 years.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to
Yeah,
pay
do-
it.
Do you phase it in with a, and that's where I think before it's been talked about how in Ohio a lot of times it's either assessment or levy, because when you start to try to transition, it starts becoming like, well, if we're transitioning, one goes away, it's a lot of.
What is the
Regardless of
assessment
taxpayers are
process?
gonna
Who
pay.
makes that decision?
It'd be the agent.
An
Yeah,
assessment,
when it all boils
if
down.
it comes from the township or if it comes from you folks,
Yeah.
you know, ultimately the
Yes.
taxpayers are paying for it.
Yes. Right.
And I just kinda wanna have that in my head
Yeah.
in case it
Yeah.
comes
Well,
to
the other
that.
thing is like diversification too. We try to look at ideally like a third fees, permits, revenue, you know, grants, whatever.
Well,
it
we're
is.
good in Newbury because I had to put a well in and a septic in the last 2 years, so I'm good.
You're going to charge you triple next time.
You know, so try to.
Well,
look at
and
that.
I'll give you an example, and I know that you need to create some revenue, I get it. But my well, they came and tested my well, and it had some bad bacteria in it, okay? For me to, you know, they gave me all the instructions how to shock the well with the bleach and all that kind of thing. And, you know, I'm fortunate, my son works for Connecticut in Newbury,
Okay.
and so, you know, to get my water retested, it's $90 through the county, okay? I got it done for 27 at a private lab.
So we do our
But I also, I'm thinking, why is there a difference? Well, I understand you have personnel, you have transportation to my home, you have to do the lab work, so I kind of get, I
Yeah.
get it, but, you know, it's expensive for the homeowners. I mean, you know, a septic system, and I think got a good deal with $16,000.
Yeah,
You
really
can find
good
this
deal.
plan on
Okay,
your car.
Yeah,
all
it's a
right,
good deal.
but then the following year, my well went, that was 11 grand. And I'm thinking, I'm retired, you know, come on.
Yeah, if you're retired at 6 figures, it's still too much
Yeah.
to pay.
Well, I don't have six-figure retirement, that's
Stuff,
ridiculous.
yeah.
And when we talk about ROI, I mean, the big thing I look at is the economy's not the best it's ever been. Families are struggling to put food on the table. It's never, I mean, it's never a good time to ask for anything, don't get me wrong, but now is a really bad time, it seems like, to ask for anything. So
Yeah.
we do the best we can. I mean, I want to bring this at least to your knowledge, because I did take the one board member's thing to heart where she's like, you really never complain, you never say anything is wrong. She goes, we all know there's stuff going on, it's just you don't want to, you know, sound like it's more than what it is. But I mean, these are the big things that are on our list right now, that they're not little small, like, you know, pebbles to move, they're kind of, they're boulders or mountains.
How nice would it be, I think, because we do so much enforcement, you know, we do some education, we do service, but what are all the better things, healthy living, promotion that we can do, or positive things that come from public health? And if we can't get this other stuff under the belt, I wouldn't want my job. You know, in Lake County, or whatever county it is, Stark County, wherever I came from, Wayne County I worked, having to do those other programs that are positive and more emotionally inspiring are what kind of fuels you. So for the staff, we need to get, and for the agency, I think what you want for your community is to get past this
Yeah.
more negative side. You know, we're supporters, we help, we educate, we don't enforce. We can change some of that, but without getting advanced, you know, we do bring in monies. What's on top of that that makes it a value to the community? I don't think it's funding what we have now. It's Plan B, C, D is what if we did this, and what else could we bring to the community? And without that, I don't think you have a leg to stand on the assessment.
Well, if we don't know, we can't help, so this is helpful.
Yeah.
Can we see the space?
Yeah, if,
Okay.
I mean, I know we don't run a journey, but do we want to be done? You can walk with us.
Well,
No, I've
Shelley,
seen it.
if she
Okay.
wants to.
Just I have two questions.
I have walked it through a couple times, yes, sorry.
I have two questions. What is in the current budget for rent?
We put a worst-case scenario of about, I think, $30,000 to $50,000 in there. And that was the expectation that would be nowhere near that, because we're using it for, it's in contract services. It was being used also for legal expenses and other contracts.
Yeah, so I think roughly you're trying to say at least 35, we thought would be where
Yeah.
it would
And-
fall in the end if we were.
And that was before the House Bill 110, that was before some of the other things, so that was like, I mean, realistically, we were expecting no more than 15 to 20 was the most we expected that we'd actually pay, like a yearly cost that was continuing.
So the budget's
Is it
a bit-
35 that you're expecting or 15?
We figured if we had to, we could carve out, we don't budget for rent like a separate line item, it's just in contract service. We only budget as a contract service total line, we don't budget by item. So in there, we said if we had to, we could cut out a little bit more than that, but with
So it's
increasing.
just a lump sum and you
Correct.
kind of.
That's how Health Department's budget. They only budget,
Juggle.
There's some other things in there that you may not need, like with the 7th payroll and
Mhm.
whatever.
That's a pretty
the
tough
27th
model
payroll.
to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially as you
that's-
submit your budget, what?
that's our
March?
required budgeting level is that.
Okay, and my other question is, has there been any discussion at all of 32 hours a week not being adequate for your position?
Yeah, I mean, the board is
Yeah,
aware of it. I mean, I put in more than that, but. I
And you
mean,
always have in the 2 years that I've been covering.
That's probably correct.
It hasn't been like an anomaly, it's
Yeah.
been continuous.
That's probably
Basically
correct.
donating his time.
Yeah,
More or
for
less.
us, we're trying to be
Right,
very
so if you get
fiscally.
hit by a bus tomorrow, is someone gonna come in and do what you're doing at your pay rate? I seriously doubt it.
I'm not sure that will happen. I just enjoy all of your time so much that I just want to be here around you all that
So
much.
that kind of, I now, my board is a succession plan for the structure that we're in, the contracts and everything, so we are actually have a job position open for HR finance, understanding that my 6 hours could change, but we try to honor that contract. The last thing we want to do is go in and say, okay, now we're way over budget.
Going on a tour.
But it's
We
not
don't have to
reality.
turn anything.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's been a discussion recently, is there's significantly more
Yeah,
being
staff
taken
time.
on than what the contract was built for.
Yeah.
And that was, even if the contract wasn't there, the staff we have, this has more than we had staff before, even before.
Yeah, this is management working board, that's a cost of these things, so we
Yes.
kind of just keep that, doesn't impact our tax dollars either, counting per se.
John, or Chris, are we good for being done? I just don't want him to sit here all night if.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not coming back.
Thank
I just
you.
didn't think we'd have paid if we're just all gonna
Yeah,
move.
there's no
this,
official end
gaggle
date,
over
but
to,
I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit here and be like, so they're coming back, am I left here? We'll lock them up tonight, close, turn the lights off.
Can you recycle here?
Thank you.
No, we don't have recycling.
All right, no recycling.
We'll walk down yonder, I'll show you all three.